Hi, my name is Ava DuVernay, and I'm pleased to be here today to speak with Kris Bowers, a celebrated composer and jazz pianist, but also a collaborator of mine, someone who I care about deeply. So when he came to me and he said that he had made a short documentary, I thought, what's this going to be like? He does music. What do you mean you made a short documentary? And then I watched it and was blown away by it. This is now a Sundance, official Sundance 2021 selection. It's a New York Times op doc, and it's called A Concerto is a Conversation. He co-directed it with Ben Proudfoot, great director. And I'm here in my capacity as one of the film's executive producers. But more than that, I'm a fan of this beautifully told, musically layered story. And if you haven't already watched it, please take a look and then come back and join us. But if you have watched it, I'm pleased to introduce the great Kris Bowers. Hello, Kris.
Hey, Ava. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
I haven't seen you in a minute.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Haven't seen you since the beautiful wedding photos.
Thank you.
Gorgeous bride on IG where you blew the world away in surprise with your quarantine wedding.
Yeah. It was quite a last minute decision, but we had to cancel at the beginning of COVID and then decided to do it about 10 days before. And it was an interesting time because we actually decided to go through with our wedding a day or two before George Floyd.
Wow.
And so, kind of carrying that as well at the same time, it was an interesting thing, but I think at the end it was really beautiful to have this light between us and, and with our family in the middle of all this chaos and darkness.
So you star in the film, you co-directed the film, and you scored the film. What was it like scoring your own story? So you scored When They See Us. You just scored my Christmas quarantine sensation, Bridgerton. Is just so juicy. And you've just done such amazing work across the board. Just so folks, this gives me an opportunity to say, Kris scored everything from Green Book to Dear White People to the Kobe Bryant film Muse. He's collaborated with Jay-Z and Kanye West, and you were nominated an Emmy for When They See Us. You were nominated for a couple other Emmys too.
Yes, for Mrs. America, I was nominated.
Oh yeah, really good. And did I say Bridgerton? So but this is your own story. What was that like?
Yeah, it was really surreal and emotional on a bunch of different levels. Like the moment in the film, even just thinking about it, I get emotional. Like the moment in the film where my grandfather says, "I hope I had a little to do with it," is such an amazing moment, and something that I think I felt in such a different way with the way that it lands in this film. And so writing themes that kind of tie into that was really interesting, and also the section specifically that goes through my childhood and my upbringing and all of that. What was interesting with that was that that theme was kind of pulled from How Great Thou Art, which is a piece that my grandfather sings often. He sings at the end credits, and so I wanted to do a loose variation of that for these moments with the family. It's first appears when he talks about his family, and then it appears again when we talk about my life. And that section was actually something that I didn't really want to compose to picture, because I didn't really want to see myself on screen over and over and over again. And I felt like it would affect the way I would approach writing the music. And something that Ben suggested was that we take this theme that I had and perform it free of time, perform it as though I'm just performing the piece and having it feel a bit more spiritual in that way. And then they would cut to the music instead of the other way around.
I see. That's a great idea. Did you have any idea that this conversation was going to go where it went? And how many of the stories were you hearing for the first time?
Yeah, I really didn't. I mean, one thing that was interesting is that the documentary wasn't originally supposed to be about my grandfather at all. It just so happened that the day we met to talk about how we would approach the film and the process and everything, I was coming from an event that was celebrating my grandfather. They just named the block that his cleaners is on after him. And so Ben was like, "Why are you all dressed up? It's Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock in the morning." And I just told him my grandfather's story. And he was like, "I think this is what we should focus on. How can we tell that story, and how can we create a parallel between that and this process of your concerto. And so, it was really an amazing opportunity to be able to sit down with my grandfather and like talk through those stories and put them on camera. But it did allow him the space to open up a little bit more and tell some stories that I hadn't heard before, tell little details of the story that I hadn't heard before.
So when you first approached your grandfather about it, what was his first? What did the first thing he say? Yeah.
I actually think he was a bit hesitant. I think just he was 91 at the time. He's 92 now, and he's just starting to get to that point where he's not moving around as fast as he was. He's not as lucid as he was. And so, I think for him, he was like, I'm sit down for an entire day and be filmed. And like, it sounded like work to him, I think, in the beginning. And he was like, I don't know how I feel about that. But also just he's been, our family is so proud of our history, and my family's done such an incredible job of like going as far back as we can. Like we can actually go back to like the first slave that was sold in our family. And so I think that he's been telling his part of that story to us as a family for such a long time, that to share that with other people, to share that with people that haven't heard that before, and to share that with people that would be able to really see how his decisions made an impact on the rest of our family, I think has been really special for him and something that he was excited to do.
So he came around.
Yeah, he came around eventually. Yeah.
He's a natural, by the way. Quite natural in front of the camera. So the way that this is shot is I won't say unusual, but it allows the viewer to have a unique perspective with the direct eye line. So what went into that creative decision, just with you and Ben as filmmakers?
Yeah, I think that was something that Ben had always wanted to explore, having this double interrotron, the Errol Morris technique, but having it be the having two subjects talk to one another with that technique. And I think the other aspect of it is wanting to really focus in on the face. I feel like one thing that Ben talks about is how much we watch these films on our phones, as much as we don't want to admit that as filmmakers. Most people are like digesting these things on small devices. Mm-hmm. And so when you're watching a short documentary, I think it's interesting to watch somebody and be able to see every small reaction, every detail in their facial reactions, like emotions and things like that. And it's best to see that when you see their face kind of filling the screen. And so, I think that decision created this intimacy with the conversation and our ability to like feel, just some of the subtlety in human interaction in a nice way.
Before I started working with you and Jason Moran, it felt like music just poured out of composers. And, just tumbles out, and it's to the picture. And it's not until I got to know you as people and know you and work with you very closely. I mean, you're the composer I've worked with the most. We worked on 5+ hours of music for When They See Us. Yeah. That everything is so deliberate. It's storytelling. Mm-hmm. Just with music, and the associations that you're making with pieces of story and emotion and pieces of your life and theme and bringing it in. It's all very, it has a technical aspect to it, but it's so emotional. Mm-hmm. And I felt that heightened even more in listening to your work applied to your own story. So to hear the way that you wove in, a beautiful song that your grandfather sings, and taking bits of it, and how you shied away from seeing yourself on screen, and which breaks a pattern of the way that you usually write, and not writing to picture. It really is a pushing of your form forward in ways that you probably wouldn't have done if it wasn't you and him. Sure. I don't know if you'll use these tactics again, but they certainly were innovated here for you. So that's exciting to hear. Your grandfather says in the piece, in the South, they tell you, and in Los Angeles, they show you. Mm-hmm. What did that mean for you? Because that really struck me as I watched.
For me, in my personal experience, I think it shows the what's behind the facade, and what, like, I think that's something that for my personal life, my grandfather has always been representative of, and my family in general, but especially my grandfather, representative of this idea of not really trusting the facade or taking things at face value because of that. And I think it's something that I was pretty naive of when I was younger. And then the older I got, the more I started to like have my own personal experiences with that and kind of see what he might have meant by that. And obviously for him, it was different, but I think it's just that feeling of people saying one thing and acting a different way, or telling you that they're going to, support you, like with my grandfather, for example, going for loans or whatever it might be, and then them deciding not to, but trying to find the most politically correct way so that they can, stay morally clean in their own minds, or so that they can stand behind this idea that they're not racist or whatever else it is. But I think it's almost like racism found a way in these other areas to be as covert and as sly as possible, so that, you almost drive yourself crazy thinking that you're seeing something that isn't there because they've gotten so good at hiding it and masking it,
Right.
And so I think that especially being for me personally as a Black composer, and being in a space where, at a time where people are excited about diversity and all those different things, it's interesting to just be able to sniff out when people are excited about that for the right reasons, and when they're excited about that because of something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Completely. I mean, what came to mind when he said, obviously thoughts about the Great Migration and Black people moving from the South to the North and in other places, feeling like there would be some respite, some softness, some leeway there, and only finding that, racism is durable. And so it is going to adapt to wherever it is, and that it's still there. It's still in Los Angeles. It's still in these places that are outside of the South. It just behaves differently and it dresses in different clothes. In the film, you asked your grandfather what he thought his biggest challenge was today. What would you say yours is?
A few things. One, I still actually do struggle a decent amount with the imposter syndrome that I was expressing to him. And it's funny because in that interview, I kept asking him questions to try to get him to admit to the idea of doubting himself. And he never did.
I know. I love that though. What did you think about that?
I think for me, it was just further confirmation that that's what it takes to survive. I think at some point, I don't think it made it into the film, but at some point he was like, why would you doubt yourself? Because everybody else is already doing that, especially as a Black man. Like, the rest of the world is already doing that. So why would I doubt myself? That's just adding insult to injury. And so I think that for me, it kind of just put a different perspective on that. I think I always looked at the doubt that I had in myself as a challenge to like push me to be better, or push me to like question whether or not I was trying my hardest. But I think that these days it feels better to try to tap into what he was talking about and tap into this feeling of believing in myself because we can't wait for other people to essentially. Yeah.
It just feels so foreign from someone born. He was born in the 20s, right? He had to be born in the 20s if he's in his 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems what you're experiencing, the fame and success and achievement in this field feels like something that couldn't have been imaginable in the 20s. When you just track like where he grew up and now and the time and the advent of film and how he's seen it, rise, and our separation from cinema, our segregation within cinema, all of the different kinds of films and the absence of us both in front of and behind the camera. And you take that all the way, almost 100 years from when he was born to now, and his grandson is scoring films and is celebrated, films with Black people in them. I mean, it's seeing the two of you together feels like, in some ways, that's the same spirit, raised in two different Americas. And I wonder what his observation of that has been to you, and how you feel he sees you.
I think that he's honestly just kind of I think surprised, like just surprised by the fact that I'm making a career as an artist. I think to him that just was such a foreign idea to do something that you want as your career, or do something that you that's based on like a talent versus like some sort of manual labor type of activity, I think, based on what he was used to. But I think the biggest thing that I love about my grandfather is that for him, it's all about like, am I happy and am I doing things to make sure that I'm supporting the people around me? Am I building a strong foundation to be a good husband, a good father? Like, I think those are the things that he focuses on. You know, in the film, there's a perfect moment that happened so naturally. But when he was like, "Yeah, when you're in school up there at that school in New York somewhere," and I feel like that's his thing. Is like, yeah, like I guess that's a good school, or I guess Sundance is great, and I guess like all the things you're doing are supposedly really great.
Right.
But for him, he's just so rooted in like what's real, and what's real
Mm-hmm.
is the people around you, family, like spirituality, like all of that kind of stuff. And so whenever we get together, he always talks to me about my career is never, he's never really impressed by like who I met or who I'm working with or where it's
Yeah.
going to be or any of that kind of stuff. His thing is like, is it making you money to then support your family and maybe like, buy property, or like all he wants to talk about is buying dirt. That's all my grandfather really cares about. But I think what's amazing about that is that, yeah, it just really instilled in me these values that I've had since I was young, that felt very normal to me, that I am so appreciative of. The older I get, the more I see how much it came from him and the way that he kind of established our family.
And was he happy when he watched it? What was his reaction when he watched it and watched himself?
Yeah, that was the first time in my entire life I ever saw my grandfather get emotional about something.
Really?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Yeah, I think that was pretty special. Like he felt very. I think this whole thing is just surreal to him. It feels wild that that so many people know his story or have reached out to him and all that kind of stuff. And I think it really just puts a symbolic cherry on top of this life that he's lived. But just kind of to put it all into perspective, it's like he knows all of this. Like he knows I hope he knows the impact that he had on our family, on all of our lives. And the fact that he was the oldest boy and like the rest of his siblings, for the most part, came out to LA and started a life because of him. I think he's aware of that, but it's something that we don't really talk about as a family that often, because we all, I think on some level, unfortunately, take it for granted because he's my grandfather. So we don't celebrate him as regularly as maybe we even should, given what he did. And I think that this film felt like such an amazing gift to give him, to feel that and to really know that for certain, at least that I feel that way, and that our family feels that way. And yeah, I think all of that's been really surreal for him and really special.
That's beautiful. The reason why I love this film so much is I feel like um, so often we talk about the large concepts as they relate to Blackness in a world that doesn't value Blackness.
Mm.
And we talk about the joy and we celebrate that. But there's an intimacy to this exchange within the sphere of Black masculinity that is so rare to see, that crosses the generational divide in a way that is rarely seen, with such tenderness. It feels like I'm watching an exchange within my own family, and I feel like Black people who have borne witness, and participated in that exchange, it will feel beautifully familiar. And for folks who feel like that exchange is foreign or does not exist, it will be instructive. But more than anything, it is a record of a great man. I just want to thank you for making it, and thank you for sharing him with the world.
Thank you so much, Ava. I really appreciate just your continuous support and championing me and my career. It means so much. I think the world of you. So that's such an honor.
Absolutely. Well, I hope that everyone who's watching will share the film, talk about the film, tweet about the film, post the film, send a pigeon messenger with the film. We want to get the word out about this film. I think it's something that's a balm for these times. I think if you watched it and you watched this conversation, you value what happens within the film as well. So we want to thank you, invite you to spread the word, and wish you a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Bye.